Hi guys, welcome. Scatlink here, and we're off for a very belated edition of What's in the Treasure Chest for my 30th birthday. That's a milestone. And before I even get into this, and the reason why it was late, even though I'm in much more better spirits than when it was coming up to, because once again, well, ever since basically the beginning of the year, it's kind of died down now, finally. But that's probably because I've learnt to filter out that crap, so it wouldn't bother me. But world news just kept pissing me off so much. You wouldn't even believe. It was getting me down. It was actually bringing me into a depressive state, and I didn't want... The last time I saw most of my friends is through Discord on a computer screen, because I want to see my friends more often. We gathered all around. Even Panda Man and Mama Panda came down for a few days just past my actual birthday, so that we could all meet up. And, you know, we went for a place called Moto Pizza, which is just all-you-can-eat pizza for 20 quid per head. Technically 15 if it's between Monday to Thursday, between 12 to 4. But we had to do it on a Saturday. But it was a good Saturday nonetheless, and not everybody could make it, but I've made time to see everybody else as well. I've seen Osaka in person, I've hung out with Baxton, who I might as well mention right now, because if there's any confusion, just the one time Will Fons has changed. It's when, you know, Kazu transitioned. I've talked about that before previously, but I've even hung out with Chondrite. In fact, I want to mention right now, sorry Mezza, can't show off the cans of Batches Orange that you got me. I've already drunk that. It's been a month. He's already aware of this, but I'm just saying in terms of that is something that I did get. And I got mini eggs as well. You can see them right behind me. I love my mini eggs. I can't help it. But yeah, it's it was a weird birthday. I mean, like, money's tight, technology's going ridiculous. Anything technological now is very expensive. And I just didn't really ask for anything this year, but unlike the last time where I didn't ask for anything and I got absolutely spoiled, I just wanted people with me. That's all I wanted. I just wanted people with me. That doesn't mean I didn't get anything at all. There were a couple of things that I got, otherwise, you know, we wouldn't have this very belated video. But that actually means that I have a story as to why this took freaking forever. So I guess I could also mention stuff at the very end, because it will save me making an update video, but I did make a little small, tiny little meme video, which I'll probably put in the card here, which will take it down below, because that's how it works now. It doesn't pop out at the side of the screen like it used to, because they keep changing things that don't need to be changed. Annotations. But regardless, we are here now, and I just want to say thanks to everybody who has hung out with me, and just, you know, I just needed people around me, and I haven't been able to hang out with Baxton for ages. And we've actually met up quite a few times over the past month, more often than not. And of course, on the Nerd Herd channel, we've been celebrating its 5th anniversary, because that kind of snuck up on me a little bit, maybe on a couple of us, but Linkario had an idea. We've still got an archipelago going on. I think we're one stream away from doing it. In fact, part 3 happened yesterday, after the day I'm recording this, because I haven't had a chance to. So, without further ado, let's get into the box. Starting off with Chondrite's Mama giving me 30 quid. I used it to get these 2 items. The first being Final Fantasy IV, the complete collection, for a good 22 quid. So it's the PSP version of Final Fantasy IV, but it also includes the After Years, without needing to get all the DLC. All the tales are in here, as well as restoring apparently Theodore's Challenge Dungeon, so you can get like better stuff for the actual main event at the end of the game, like one of the final tales. Basically, you gotta have like one of every file for every tale, similar to how in Birth by Sleep, ironically enough with the same system, you gotta have different files for all the characters. That saves all your clear data, and then with all those data, you'll be able to make the final file, basically. So it kind of cobbles together like that, and if you get the additional stuff from their challenge dungeon within their tale, they retain their levels as well as the better equipment that you've gone farming for. And I'm slowly chipping away at it. I'm already in the after years. It's the first time I've beaten Final Fantasy IV. The interlude, which is only exclusive on this version, is kind of a nothing burger entry, because anything that you would see by playing through the interlude is included as flashbacks in like shortly after Final Fantasy IV anyway, within the after years, which takes place I think 17 years after, but it's through the full collection. You can't get the interlude anywhere else, and personally these are the definitive versions, because again, the Pixel remasters only remake the original game up to the original game. So as far as I'm aware, the Pixel remaster doesn't allow you to swap your characters around after you beat or get to the final dungeon of Final Fantasy IV. This version does, and it also includes the other dungeons that allow you to get better equipment for those characters, so they actually are viable to use. So yeah, I went through that a few times. I got a decent 45-hour playtime on it. I actually had a good time, although the story itself kind of annoyed me a little bit. Like, oh, let me guess, I can't warp, I can't teleport, because they stick a freaking cutscene literally at the entrance of the dungeon, so you got to go backwards through the dungeon. Just so I plot convenience just makes me lose the whole reason I was there in the first place. Honestly, Libra, Warp, and Teleport are the most useless spells in the game, because when you want to teleport out of a dungeon, you're not allowed to. You could warp backwards, but when it says it will take you back to the previous floor, it actually takes you to the previous door. So I don't know if that's a typo with how the spell's described or how it functions, because if you take a door or a stair, that technically is a transition. So every time you transition to another map within a dungeon, be a stair or a door, that counts as a floor. You have to warp multiple times. Sometimes you're not even allowed to warp, but there's no cutscene stopping me from doing that all the way to the exit of the dungeon. So again, why can I not teleport or warp? And that's not just Final Fantasy IV, that's the after years as well. So it's a very weird thing to have spells that are just always barred off, even when they don't need to be. Like halfway through the final dungeon of Final Fantasy IV, halfway through you can teleport out. That's cool. But as soon as you get to the second half of it, even one floor in, you can no longer warp, which nothing stops you going backwards anyway, so why is warp not working? But you can't teleport either. Why? Almost every enemy at that point also plays the boss music, like a mini-boss. So it just kind of baffles me on those design decisions, considering this is probably one of the more, you know, polished ports or remakes of Final Fantasy IV. But I've finally beaten it. It's a game off my bucket list. I've never got any further than Theodore and the... I forget what other one that I had on the Wii shop channel for the after years, but I never got all the stories because I didn't really like it much. But I'm committing to it and I'm playing through it. It's given my PSP another lease of life, which is not the only one, because I've got some more things to talk about. So yeah, Final Fantasy IV The Complete Collection was one of the things I got in a CEX from Stella's Mama's gift of 30 quid, because again, I didn't have any ideas, and I saw it on the store on the shelf and I was like, mine? But then I saw this. The second part of the Cornetto trilogy, Hot Fuzz. Story about this. In fact, I've got probably a story about every single one of these, actually. The first one is Shaun of the Dead, because it's all made by a working title. That's why I always forget the name, because it is a working title, because it's a Simon Pegg film. But this is the second of the Cornetto trilogy, because Shaun of the Dead, this film, and The Golden Mile, which is the more out there, so bad it's good, like, just balls to the wall insane film of going between pubs to have a pint at each one across the mile or whatever. But aliens and body doubles. Paraphrasing. But this one, he's basically a excellent policeman, but he gets sent off to this place that seemingly has no crime, and, you know, with his rigid way of doing things, he sticks out like a sore thumb. No one seems to like him because he seems to be disturbing the peace, but he actually uncovers something way more sinister than anything he's done before. Great film, hilarious, basically comedy, all three of them. But it's called the Cornetto trilogy because Cornetto's like an ice cream. It's kind of like prevalent in all of them, except for the Golden Mile, where it's like in the after story, like what happened to things at the very end, and all you see is a wrapper. But because it's there, it's part of the trilogy, and it was just a gimmick. But yeah, I remember watching this along with the Golden Mile at Alt Vikings with Lady Lincario and Spirit Wolf, and this was like one of those boner nights where we just like have stuff on the fire, have drinks, and just, you know, banter and all that around a fire in his garden. But it started to get a bit damp and rainy, so we headed on in and we just marathoned both films. And I liked it so much, I was like, do we have this physically? No. Only 150. So that's a bit of a bargain there. Grabbed these both at the same place, CEX. So I was pretty chuffed about that, so I had to pick that up. So if I can find the Golden Mile, I might grab that as well. Not too sure about Shaun of the Dead though, so, but again, I haven't seen it in ages, so I might give it another watch. But anyways, now it's time for a trilogy of different games, same name. First of all, let's get it out of the way right now. This is not Sands of Time, although it's part of the same continuity because it's the same prince. We're not talking about that until maybe a little bit later, where I can rant a little. I've been holding a lot of rants for the entire year. I'm going to keep it very concise, like I did in an update video. But I've got, basically, my mum's went on to eBay and I said I want Prince of Persia for these particular systems, and I would like them on those particular systems because each game is different. The DS version of the Forgotten Sands takes place after the entire Sands of Time series, including the trilogy. So this takes place after the Two Thrones. You meet up with the Djinn from the PSP version that takes place earlier. I'll cover that a little bit more later. But this is after the prince has lost his memories, and by facing this cult that has somehow accessed a portion of Forgotten Sands that messes with his memories, and he's able to restore them after a while, after dealing with the evil that is released. And every time you get past one of the three worlds to the fourth world, you get flashbacks as well as unlock the costumes of each part of the main trilogy, not counting the other Forgotten Sands. Although, as I've already mentioned, which I'll get into in a bit more, the partner character that you play with in this game is the same Djinn that appears in the PSP version, I think. The only problem that brings this game down, obviously, is on the DX, and it's a very chibi style, and it is also side-scrolling. But you do everything with the touchscreen like you do with Zelda Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. So physical buttons don't really have a thing. However, the top screen doesn't really need to be a thing, it's just glorified HUD. So you could just, if you were going to show the game for whatever reason, you could have the main screen as big as you want, and then just like superimpose the bottom one, like Melon Mix. But yeah, I have played it already, and it's okay, but obviously the touchscreen's a little bit on the janky side of doing things. But if you beat a level and grabbed any chests, those chests obviously don't respawn because you have them. So if you went to go into the level to find the rest of the chests that you're missing for 100%, then your score gets updated with only those chests. And if you go back and level, those chests are gone, but the chests you had before are there. So if you're going 100% the game, you have to basically do it every level first try. Or if you want to reset it so you can get the last chest that you're missing, you have to beat the level without grabbing anything, so all the chests are there for when you next go through again. It's a little bit of an annoyance that I don't know how they messed that up. Because it's registered to your save that you have those chests, the ones you didn't grab are still there, but because you didn't grab the ones that are no longer there on that run, when the game saves, it's like, oh, you only grabbed this one. So these two, if the level had 3, doesn't have them. So they're back. It's a very weird thing. So if you're going to 100% a level, like, I want all the chests. Get all the chests. Yeah, so there's Prince of Persia Forgotten Sands for the DX. I did actually have titles describing all 3 of these. Is for the Wii, which apparently includes the original Prince of Persia. I can't remember what version, but because it's on the Wii, I would assume it would be the NES version, which is like the worst version. Prince of Persia Sands of Time, as I've covered in my own Let's Play, that very particular video that includes all the bonus games. The Xbox US version, for whatever reason, includes the original Prince of Persia 2, Shadows in the Flame, as well as the original, for all versions, the original Prince of Persia, but it's the Macintosh version, so it's actually really good, one of the more popular versions. But regardless, this one takes place after the PSP version, which also follows after the PS3/PC versions. The PC and PS3 versions are the same, every other version is different, and this is this one. So basically you're following a genie that he managed to pick up in a flea market on his way back to Persia, effectively back to this palace, and he follows it, being basically promised the wish of being a king to his own kingdom, and he ends up getting swept into that instance in order to solve the problem there. And because it's a forgotten realm in sands that hide it, that is where, again, it's weird. The title Forgotten Sands obviously was a tie-in for like, this game's available on everything, but it's also just more of a chapter name than anything else, because each game is a different story about a type of Forgotten Sands. So the title works for all of them. They're just different stories and therefore completely different games. And this was very interesting because with the pointer, like when you get to a certain point, you can actually make your own grapple points. So you can actually cheese certain things or do things where you're not intended to do or get to. I did get myself stuck in a few places a couple of times, but if you're really clever about it, you can do some parkour you weren't really expecting to. But yeah, so that's the Wii version. By the way, all three of these actually come with their manuals as well. I made sure of that. So that's pretty cool. In fact, I forgot to mention, this is DSi compatible, so if I play it on my 3DX, it should use the cameras for certain things. I don't actually know what... I think it just changes the background or something, which you don't... It's very frivolous. You can play it on the normal DS, I forgot to mention that. But they have no connectivity except for the PSP version. There we are. So... this was, in fact, the last two items, which is this and the next one, is one of the reasons why... Actually, no, they're both reasons why this video was so late. So let me just describe the game first, and I'll tell you about the lateness. Because, as I said, it goes into the next item. Prince of Persia Forgotten Sands for PSP. Apparently, if you connect this to the PS3 version of Forgotten Sands, you unlock extra concept art as well as the Sands of Time costume, which, again, going back to the Wii version, it actually has built-in achievements. You can unlock the original Sands of Time costume as well, so that's pretty cool. And I've already mentioned in the DS version you could do that, but you get that available in the in-game store just by playing the game. You get all three costumes, the blue one from Sands of Time, the red one from Warrior Within, and then the yellow one from the Two Thrones, or the PSP names, whatever they're called. Sorry, I had to look it up. So it is Revelations for Warrior Within, that's the PSP version. Same with the Two Thrones Becoming Rival Swords, which add extra levels and a bit more context to certain things, especially in the Two Thrones, which is Rival Swords. But in Revelations, they add an extra area that really did not need to be there, and just makes things even more annoying, and I'm not a fan of the game anyway, so... it's superfluous. If I ever do cover the games, I will cover the extra levels. I'll insert them when necessary, because I can eventually pick up those versions for PSP later on. Because they never made an HD version that included the additional stuff. The trilogy on PS3 was the PS2 games up-raised. So, and I've never played those two games on that system, and we already had a couple of issues with Sands of Time. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. I need to talk about this. So this game starts off with basically a legend of a fiery Ifrit creature, similar to the one that you bump into the PSP/PC version of Forgotten Sands, because, spoilers, the prince's brother dies, and because there's not much left of the lineage of Charman's family, because of knowing of this particular creature, because the rumours are going around, because the royal family is starting to shrink, because everyone keeps falling, Charman puts the prince into a tower to keep him safe. But because he's acrobatic, he sneaks out and discovers a spirit that leads him to potentially save his family from this terrible fate. And that's what leads him to this. And then after this happens, when he's on his way back to his home, that's when the events of the Wii version happen. It kind of makes sense. because this is when he wants to prove himself that he can hold his own despite taking out creatures already, so he can have his own kingdom. I think that makes a lot of sense considering what happened in the PS3/PC version, where he tried to help his brother keep his kingdom safe, and ultimately, because of, you know, the Forgotten Sands in that game, caused problems. So this is where they all fit in. It's the same prince, and he has certain revelations and a bit of character building in a way, basically showing slowly how he gets a little bit more jaded. And then you have the DS Battles of Prince of Persia, which is like a tactical game that takes place like 6 years before Warrior Within, and when he's on the run from the Dahaka, that's when Warrior Within actually happens. Got it all once again. That's pretty awesome. But here's the thing. An order was placed for this alongside the other two at the same time, and these two turned up in a timely manner. This one, however, didn't even get given to the courier. Not this particular copy. That was the first order. What happened was that it was like a week after the estimated delivery time, and the tracking said the courier hasn't received it yet. So that means that the person who, oh, I'm going to put this on eBay and sell it, someone bought it, aka my mum, and, well, post it then, never left the dude's hand, or dudette's hand. When you sell something on eBay, you're supposed to give it to the person? I asked, like, what's happening, tried to contact the seller through eBay, and because of eBay's buyer protection, 3 days went by, no response, they refunded it. So, we put another order in, and guess what? Up to the latest estimated delivery, and this was 3 days past then, but this was the bank holiday of May, to be fair, so this was when the weekend as well as the bank holiday Monday just went up, so and I sent this on the bank holiday Monday saying, I know it is the bank holiday Monday, but the earliest delivery date said it could have been done beforehand, what's the hold up? And then they said, it's on the way. Another 2 days went by, I sent another message, literally 10 minutes later, it came through the mail, so I had to send another message saying no worries, I finally got it. But that means this took this one took about a week and a half, but the previous one taking 2 weeks and not showing up at all. This almost took a month to get this. Why was it such a pain to grab this particular version of the game? I don't understand it. I mean, it was good that obviously every single one we went for had both the disc and the manual, because I love manuals, love physical media, but it was just very strange that that just refused to turn up for some reason. So this one was more of a late edition, and this is like, what, maybe 4 days after putting the order for this. Linkario suggested, because she actually suggested last year, but I couldn't make a decision, I was indecisive. She suggested if she would basically want to put this thing together, and it became a collaborative effort, ironically enough. Not with me, but with a bunch of others. Let me get into that. I've actually got it in a box within a box here because it's delicate. And there we go. Look at that. It's a 3D printed, classic style Link minifigure. I'm going to put some pictures on screen right now, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. So, as I said, Linkario suggested if I would like a figurine. I suggested, could I have it amiibo-sized to go with the rest of my other Link amiibos that I have, because I'm not a fan of the 8-bit Link amiibo. After some confusion, not going to get too much into that, this was made with Alt Vikings 3D printer. And that's the white picture that you see. But for the painted ones, because they're a lot more better contrast than what I can show with my webcam, is that it was painted by Alt Vikings' friend Mike. You may know him as Warpstone Overlord in certain past live streams that were done with Alt Viking hosting on the Nerd Herd, perhaps. But the reason why the colours are a little bit muted is because that they mostly 3D print Warhammer figurines. So the colours are a lot more rustic in that kind of sense. But the texture of where Link is standing, I mean, my idea was the stand, because again, I wanted it like in a kind of amiibo sort of thing. But this ground-like texture, this rough rock-feeling texture, that was all Mike's idea. And did a sweet job on the paintwork, honestly. And I have to hold it by the base because it's quite delicate. In fact, I don't know if you can tell, there's a little bit of glue on the boot, so yeah, it's a bit glossy looking, but that's fine because it feels quite nice, honestly. And then I asked Meza if he could do a certain thing for me to give this amiibo-like style, to paraphrase, and it has it. So yeah, that is basically my classic Link figurine, because I'm not a fan of the sprite, because I mean, I know that there was the 3D 8-bit classic Mario in both well, classic colors and modern colors style. Aaron has both of them actually, but at least they're accurate. The Zelda one, or the Link one, should I say, has like the white sword on his back in an angle, and that never happens. So it just looks odd, and I wasn't a fan of that. Plus, I like A Link to the Past more than the original Zelda, so that's where the style came from. Although it is a bit of a modernized version, because he's actually got white pants, not skin. But that's perfectly fine, because if you look in certain artwork of the original A Link to the Past, it doesn't even look like he's wearing pants. And by pants, I mean actual pants, UK pants, not skin tights, white tights, I don't know. But yeah, so that is that. And I'm actually going to wrap it back up, because until I do a little bit more dusting so I can add that to my collection. As I said, it's delicate, so I've got a little box to keep it in. It's not the treasure chest box, but I've got the box inside the box. You've got to put the box inside the box. You can't return the box if you don't have the box.
You can't return a box after you've opened the box.
Now here's the thing, that could have actually been ready before this bloody thing actually turned up, but it was held off for about a week and a half because Viking was ill, Linkario was ill, and I think Mikey didn't have it to paint it, because Linkario couldn't go to collect it because she actually lives closer to Mike, and couldn't really go collect it with Viking because Viking was ill. So that was a whole mess. But ironically enough, mentioning, well, other than Linkario, or Viking, Mikey, and Meza, we all just recently finished a 1.5 year casual off-stream in our own personal time playthrough of Warhammer Rogue Trader. The adventures of his dogmatic Monk High Majesty Lord Captain Rogue Trader Alantark Holt Meza von Valancius. It has nothing to do with the figurine, but because I mentioned literally everybody working on this figurine for me, which, other than the 3D printer, is super cheap, it just takes time to do the painting, which again, thank you Mike for that. But because I mentioned them all, I just wanted to mention that we finally finished that game. So we could play it again with DLC and stuff, but considering like we were playing it like for like 3 to 5 hours every other Friday on a fortnightly basis. So considering it took us that long, it's probably actually a good thing, because we only skipped like a few nights every so often, especially like in terms when I was ill last summer. So yeah, I would like to say thanks for everybody for that as well. That the figurine was more of like a bonus than anything else. This was a pain in the ass to get, but all the rest of it, like 2 of them was just good finds, and the Forgotten Sands games is what I want. Basically, the only one I'm missing now is Battles of Prince of Persia for the DS. That's it, really. So yeah. So about last week. I've been waiting so long, I've grown a beard. We finally got a trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4. 4 years. Like, why did it take so long? Like, again, I was potentially going to make a video about this, but I thought I'll just get the end here like I usually do, because I don't want to go into it too much, because there wasn't a lot that was announced that I'm personally interested in, although there is that new Wolverine game that looks pretty good. I haven't been much to the Marvel games, but I think it is being made by Insomniac, because it's got the same kind of box style that the Spider-Man games have, but I'm not into Spider-Man much. But I did play, obviously, the Deadpool game. I have that on PS4, and I want to play Wolverine because I'm interested. I mean, I did, well, back in the day, watch X-Men Origins Wolverine, but that film was crap, which, funnily enough, got taken the piss out of in Deadpool and Deadpool Wolverine, which is Deadpool 3. Obviously, Wolverine shows up in that because he's in there, and that made me more interested. Not into superheroes, but it was really good that I'm interested in. Stellar Blade's getting a sequel, although I haven't played the first one yet, so at the time. Final Fantasy Revelations, the part 3 of the remake trilogy for Final Fantasy 7. Still haven't played the other two because I don't have the time. I'm trying to get for other games. I'm still going through Tears of the Kingdom and I can't get back to it. But we have a Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer after 4 years. Considering that at the beginning of this year, January 30th, like very end of the first month, even though I had already given up on this, or this, whatever you want to call it, because I covered these versions in defiance because I gave up on waiting. It was literally one trailer, then 6 years of just, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And then, on the month that it was supposed to be revealing like another trailer and release date, apparently from what the devs have said, around about 99% completion, and it was cancelled, and most of them didn't even know until the discourse on Twitter with that very statement, which looked mostly the same as all the other ones saying it's coming, saying it's not coming. So I've already turned my back on the remake, and then Ubisoft come along and stab me in the back. And then 2 days later or so, they twist that Nightfall, just give it a little wiggle, because then they announce the replacement of the Prince of Persia series, Assassin's Creed, getting the remake of their 4th game, no less, Black Flag. And everyone was going nuts for it. I'm not going to lie, I was salty, because I was like, yeah, you're all hyped about this now, but they've just announced this after announcing that 6 other projects, plus Sands of Time remake, got nothing for 6 years or so after one trailer, and they'll get cancelled. That will probably happen with this, because I have no faith. I have no faith. And then, to really twist that knife, during all these announcements, lo and behold, they have game footage of the remake of Black Flag. You got that done in less than 6 months, yet you took 6 years, and you couldn't get a smaller game, mind you, already out. And it doesn't, maybe it's my, like, autistic brain ticking over or something, or overthinking things, but I can't fathom wasting that much time and money and not making a single penny out of it. You just tossed it away. Why not just finish it up and then recomp the money by selling the game? I mean, isn't that the whole point of putting it together in the first place? Didn't make sense. So, you know, that was this year, obviously, but since last year, I kind of gave up on Kingdom Hearts news because we got the news that Missing Link got cancelled. So the thing that was supposed to keep us waiting until Kingdom Hearts 4 was dead. So then, you know, Copium basically ran dry at that point. And I didn't feel like I wanted to watch every, like, piece of news from other companies. But this is basically E3 time, you know? So this is like when they do everything. So you've had, what was the order? State of Play, the Xbox Showcase, the PC Showcase, or PC Game Day, I think it was, for Summerfest, and then it was the Nintendo Direct. And I'm always watching Nintendo Directs, and that's where they drop the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer. But to be fair, it makes sense, because even though they don't drop Kingdom Hearts trailers of any kind in Nintendo Directs, because they started doing them after Recoded dropped for the DS, so that's why that was never covered. They only dropped it because, you know, it's mostly Smash related. When Sora was announced, they also announced the cloud versions, but now they've actually announced native ports, which does include for Switch 1, 1.5 and 2.5, the PS2 games. Well, PS2, PSP. Could have been done on normal hardware, because there's been many other PS2 games that have come to the Switch 1 before the Switch 2 even came out. So I'm guessing they wanted to wait for the Switch 2 to come out so that they could have natively running 2.8 as well as especially Kingdom Hearts 3. Fair enough. And then you've got 1.5 and 2.5. But you could have still at least put 1.5 and 2.5 separately on Switch 1 at the time. Just put the PS3 versions on there. Yes, they don't run at 60, but they still were the full games. This didn't make sense to me. And now you do have native versions, but they're not all physically on the card. It's a card key card, so you can't really win with physical media for Switch Kingdom Hearts games, except for Melody of Memory, which is still not on Steam, by the way. That's still locked off on Steam. It's like the one discrepancy now, but other than Melody of Memory, which, by the way, is just a rhythm game, but the plot is like the last 15 minutes of the game, so don't really mention that when I mention that we haven't had anything since Kingdom Hearts 3. You had that shortly afterwards. Then we were supposed to have Missing Link while waiting for Kingdom Hearts 4. That disappeared. So then we've had literally nothing. So we had no news, and the only news we got was bad news. And that was literally it. I mean, we got 7 JPEGs, but they were basically like almost the same things that we already had from the first trailer. And they look nothing like what we've already seen in this trailer, where they showed a bunch of new characters, some returning ones. We've seen Strelitzia, we've seen what Luxord, however you pronounce his name, looks in this world as well. I think there was that person with the black mask. I think he appears in one of the later parts of the Keyblade War cutscenes in Union Cross, which, even though that Union Cross and Dark Road is an offline download, that's also delisted for some bizarre reason, so you're missing out on that officially. I don't understand that, because they went out of their way to make the game an offline playable version, but you can't do it, so you have to find an APK to do it yourself, which does work, but it's not official because they've removed it off of stores, and I don't get it. That's why, if you remember, I made this, because this was the phone that I had Union Cross on there, so that is my file with all of my achievements. And I also maxed out my level on Dark Road. I left it running on charge for literal weeks to get that done. Tangent aside, because I'm just trying to talk about Kingdom Hearts 4 in general, this is like the most substantial piece of information that we got immediately after getting native ports on Switch 2, which I'm happy, because it gets rid of the cloud versions, even though the way that they're handling the upgrade is scummy, so, you know, monkey paw. But that didn't affect Kingdom Hearts 4, because that's coming out at launch for Switch 2 as well as all other platforms, which is good. And then Nintendo were like, okay, so we've had the big announcement for everyone else, now we have our big announcement, remake of Ocarina of Time. I know that I keep saying that the 3DS version's a remake. It's more of a remaster, but the reason why people call it a remake is because that even though it is using the same code base, it's not just that the models and the graphics were touched up, it was like actual models were recreated, animations were rekeyed, and some things feel a lot different, although the same. That's why all the old glitches work. It's like comparing the Shadow Man remastered to the original. It is basically the same thing, and it is the same game, but only mostly the textures are changed, modern resolutions and aspect ratios, restored content, just cleaner visuals in general, but the models weren't really touched up at all. They were the same models from way back in the day, and I think for Twilight Princess HD, they did touch up a couple of models, although they're still noticeably polygonal. You can still see the edges, but it wasn't as drastic as what Ocarina of Time did. Majora's Mask 3D, it is still a remaster, but it's a lot more closer to a remake than remaster. They used assets from Ocarina of Time 3D, like the models and the animations and stuff like that, but none of the original glitches work. It fundamentally plays different. Hell, the bosses are different. I went so in depth with my 100% walkthrough of Ocarina of Time 3D that instead of making a separate differences video comparing the older version, I sprinkled it in as I was going, because there were so many different little changes. Like, it's still the core game, it's still the story, but it felt more remake than remaster. It's like teetering on the edge of remake, more so. Well, 3 is just a remaster that was also the first portable version of the game. Let's keep in mind. It was also technically a tech demo for the 3DS, similar to how Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, which is the first one, was a tech demo for the new 3DS, showing that it could run. Technically, the original could run it as well, but only at 10 frames a second, so they made it a new 3DS exclusive to show, look how smooth this is running. And this was something that was on the Wii. This thing technically is only a tad bit stronger. Yes, the resolution's smaller, but you've got this bigger world on a handheld system. Then obviously Switch came out and they were just like HD, there we go. But you get what I mean. It's like this is a full-blown from the ground up remake. So similar to the Star Fox HD, which also came out during the wait for all this, or is coming out, but they've got a demo now, and it expands on its remake of Star Fox 64, which has had the memes go out with that's all they make Star Fox 64. And I do get it, because Star Fox Zero was more of a retelling, a new game, but with the same story, because none of the levels are the same. Even if you're going through Corneria, it's not the same. Similar to how Star Fox 1 on a Super Nintendo, technically that's what Star Fox 64 is, a retelling of. So you can swap Star Fox Super Nintendo, Star Fox Switch 2, or Star Fox 64, or Star Fox Zero, and just swap one out for the other, and it would still fit in the timeline. They're all the same story, effectively so. It's just Star Fox 64 and again Star Fox 64 3D, that was a remaster, a portable remaster in the same vein that what Ocarina of Time had. Although I don't think the original glitches work, but then again there's not really many glitches you can do on an on-rail shooter anyway. But it was basically the same thing, just swapping out models and clearing up the audio. The difference with the remake of Star Fox is that they've actually expanded upon the parts before the actual Lilac Wars with James McLeod, as well as, from what we can see in the demo, more dynamic discussions with the team, similar to how it was with those cutscenes on the Switch version of Starlink, where they actually talk about the mission, have a little bit of banter here and there, but actually try to strategize. Like, if you take the warp from Meteor, for example, they're actually closer to one planet, instead of going onwards to what they would have done if they just went through Meteor normally, the Meteor Belt, the second level, on the easy route. So it was like, if you want, you can go there, but because of your current position, going through the wormhole, this would actually be better if you can do that. And we would appreciate if you go there first. You can't be in both, so it's your decision. But if you only go one way, then they just talk about that level and strategize. You can't play it, you can only play the one level, but it's cool that is there. Plus the training. The training seems to be integrated into the story, as well as that panda that talks to you that didn't have a voice in the original, he now has a voice. And there's also a little bit of banter there as well. The other teammates are also in there messing about. It's basically treated like a VR simulation instead of you going through a training facility, which makes a bit of sense as well. But it's like they're expanding, and that's a thing that they could do with Ocarina of Time on the remake on Switch 2 as well. The story could be expanded, full voice acting. How will most of the events look, or the creatures look? I'm surprised it's Peggy 12. We've got Dead Hand. That's grotesque. And that was with, limited 3D, like on the N64. We've got the innards of Jabu Jabu. That's not going to look that cartoony anymore, is it? So that's going to be quite gross. And this is a 12? I would have at least made it a 15, especially since, with the themings of the story, if they expand it, hell, they might even bring in some of the plot points or character development from the manga if they really wanted to, because it is official. They could literally expand it in ways that we wouldn't even expect. They could bring back stuff that was also removed. Unicorn Fountain, the Temple of Light. They could even make more side quests similar to what they did with Link's Awakening HD, fill in Hyrule Field, actually have more creatures around, because the reason why it's so empty is because of literally just the existence of riding a Pona, so that's a thing. So instead of just wandering around almost empty Hyrule Field that may felt big back in the day, will definitely feel bigger now, and all the areas can also be interconnected. There's no loading transitions. This is going to be insane. Like, they've obviously had the technology to do this on the Switch 1 with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. They should really be able to push the graphics and still have it at least no transition. The whole world is just there in that kind of manner, And again, we're going to have potentially full voice acting, more lore pieces are going to be expanded upon, Link's facial animations, he might actually react more. Remember, the Hero of Time is a traumatic soul. His story is literally so unfair. He's a child that had to basically become an adult before he actually had it, which is why at the end of the game Zelda sends him back so he can regain his childhood. Unfortunately, due to his experiences and the fact that he gets brought into the events of Majora's Mask, which is even more screwed up, he then goes back into the Lost Woods. We don't know what happened then. Probably gets along with Malon, so that Twilight Princess Link's a thing and becomes a ranch hand or a boat wrangler in Twilight Princess. And the hero Shade, he's a Stalfos. He probably got lost in the Lost Woods without a fairy companion, and that's what happened to him. The thing is that no one remembers the Hero of Time's exploits either, because in Majora's Mask you always rewind time, so unless you do what I did, the perfect cycle, no one knows what you've done. They don't retain it. And again, on Ocarina of Time, because it happens in a future where it has now skewed off into another tangent because you've been removed from it to go back to this point, to go elsewhere. So Zelda rewinds you to go elsewhere, which is, you know, how we get Wind Waker and Majora's Mask and then Twilight Princess. Like, the only person that actually knows what Link's done is Zelda, but that's only through Link telling her, as well as obviously informing the king of Gandalf's betrayal, hence what happens in Twilight Princess, where we see the execution scene. And there's different sages, and they look different, but hey, stylistic choice, interpretation. But when I first saw it, I was like, we don't need another remake because we've got Ship of Arcanium, but Nintendo don't see anything from that. And the 3DS remake, I mean, they could have, I thought they were going to port that. When I heard Zelda Ocarina of Time remake, I assumed, oh, they're going to port the 3D versions of that, and they probably didn't see the fact that Majora's Mask included, like a collection pack, because everyone's been wanting Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD as like a tube pack for literally the entirety of the Switch 1's life cycle, which, keep in mind, was about 8 to 9 years. And yet that never happened. And yet now we've got a full-blown, from the ground up remake. And you know what? The logo originally was like, oh, I don't know about the gold, but it's grown on me. And especially if it's on a black background, because that reminds me of the Power Box, which you can see in NSO anyway. But it's also got the sword and shield coloured in, which, by the way, the Master Sword is a lot more bluer than purple, which I do like. I do like that style. It's the style that I have, and that's the style I grew up with, Ocarina of Time. And the best thing about that is that it's basically a fusion of both the PAL and the NTSC coloured sword and shield logos put in a one. But that also made me realise, hang on a minute, we just got Donkey Kong 64 on the Virtual Console, and all the Toy Story games getting remastered, which was before all these announcements, which is insane, because I've been wanting Toy Story 2 on the NSO. Yes, we get basically SNES remakes for the Donkey Kong challenges and technically achievements, but they're limited time, which I don't like. And as I said, Donkey Kong 64, because I've been wanting that for ages. Things that I've been wanting for the NSO have actually came out in some fashion, even though not exactly with the NSO, because we've got Rayman 2 as well. But what bothers me, and this is when I realised when they announced the Ocarina of Time remake, where is Master Quest on the NSO 64? That's a weird omission, especially since you have different versions of like SNES games where it's like, oh, this is like a power save. You have all the stuff, like the world has changed to Super Mario World, or in Zelda 1, you're basically already got the white sword and everything that you would normally do to get the white sword before Dungeon 1 is there, so you get to basically skip all that. But they also could have just had Master Quest in the NSO for 64. Why is that not there yet? Because that is its own separate ROM. Because if you were building Ship of Arcanium, you can provide that for that content, those configurations of the dungeons. So, as it is a separate thing, the only way you can play the N64 original Master Quest is through the bonus disc of Wind Waker, which I have, because I got the Wind Waker value pack. I'll probably put a picture here. It's a silver GameCube. It was my first GameCube. That's why I still got my silver controller that still works, which you've seen me use many a time. But it came with Wind Waker, obviously, but it also came with that bonus disc containing Ocarina of Time, as well as the Master Quest. But if you wanted to not play the N64 version, which was on a limited release disc, you would need to get the Ocarina of Time 3D, play the original game in order to unlock it, which is fine, but that's still on the remaster. There's no way to play the original, and yet you have NSO, which has the non-modified original Ocarina of Time. So why is Master Quest not in there? Which is very strange, because I think the special version of The Adventure of Link allows you to start with up to Death Mountain already cleared, so you can do the last half of the game. There's also another special version, which I think is New Game Plus, so you're level 8, but at the beginning of the game, which is technically second quest, but it's not actually, it's just New Game Plus. There's also a special which starts you on second quest on Zelda 1, but you can do that anyway by just typing your file name in Zelda. So they have these options here. I've always talked about putting Zelda Ancient Stone Tablets through the NSO service. That would work, especially with the new challenge thing. If you have a timer, that would work perfectly. But they just won't do it, and it doesn't make sense to me, especially in the days of streaming and all that. you did that through radio signals on the original hardware. I'm pretty sure it's easy to implement if you stick it on the NSO. And yeah, as I said with the logo of the HD, it's really grown on me, and I'm getting more hyped the more I think about it, because I'm seeing people say certain stuff and it's getting my own clock thinking. Keep in mind as well, initially I was like, you didn't just do that. We just got Kingdom Hearts 4 and then a Zelda remake, and the fact that it says it's coming out 2026, that is insane, considering that we're already halfway through the year. There's going to be a direct for this soon-ish. Although, it is probably going to be a December release, because they really want to get that being their holiday title. That would make the most sense, unless they want to directly compete with, apparently, GTA 6 that's coming out in November. That's why a lot of announcements were dancing around November, being October, September, something like that, but not going into December yet, because they probably want to like have it out earlier so that they get more sales going on, or if people buy early so they can keep stock going, or something like that. I don't know, but that I actually went on a lot longer than I was expecting for that. That was probably like half an hour just rambling, so I don't know how much editing was actually there, but I really wanted to talk about all the announcements just here, because this video will obviously, as I've already mentioned, because of a couple of things on this pile here, Prince of Persia Forgotten Sands for PSP, and then the classic Link figurine, they delayed this video, so making it more meaty seems like, oh well, that was worth the wait. So I hope that that was actually worth, and talking about basically rapid fire, no structure, just talking about most of the announcements. I didn't even mention the new Spyro game coming out. I was already messing with the Reignited trilogy on getting like a co-op mod working. You have to be local for that. You can't remote play because the game doesn't have two-player normally anyway, and it is quite janky, but it's quite fun. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, Toys for Bob, who aren't even with Activision, was still able to make a Spyro game, because the only reason why they dipped out is because they didn't want to work on Call of Duty, which, to be fair, if your branding Toys for Bob was on a Call of Duty's game, that probably would tarnish your brand just by naming alone, because you were forced to make it, and that would be just tossing it out there. So I understand that's not what they wanted to work on, and considering that, once again, not what, 9 to 10 years since the newest Spyro game, which was in the Legend of Spyro Dawn the Dragon, I think it was, which I didn't play the Legend of Spyro series, but Stella has. That's when we get the remakes. They did well, just as well as the Insane trilogy for Crash, yet Crash got 3 more games. Spyro got nothing other than being in 2 of those as a character alongside Allura. And that was it. He didn't get his own game, and it was like, well, why is Crash getting the treatment and not Spyro? Now Spyro's actually getting it, which is amazing. And let's not forget as well, this is a new Spyro game, and it's not even numbered, because Crash 4, it's about time, I'm guessing, was supposed to replace Wrath of Cortex, but this is not actually replacing Enter the Dragonfly. This is just Spyro, Realm Beyond. So this could be 7 after Shadow Legacy. I haven't played Shadow Legacy, I need to get through a Hero's Tale, but it is going to play more so like the Reignited trilogy, because obviously they worked on that. That's what they liked. That's what everyone else wanted. So we want more of that. Although it looks like you do have free roam flying, apparently. So we'll see about what happens with that. And even though Ubisoft has burned me, they've teased me with the 3D remake of Rayman Legends, because I don't like the 2D Rayman games, but that's 3D. It's actually got 3D levels in there, and even though it does play similarly, apparently Legends didn't have much of a story. It felt like a level pack for Origins, but then they had to tease me Rayman 4. Ubisoft, why do you not like me? I know there's a lot of discourse with Ubisoft and how anti consumer that they are, especially when it comes to game preservation and physical copies, because again, on Switch 2, Rayman Origins Legends is going to be a game keycard, but on PS5 the game is on the disc, but there's a download code that for a remastered of Origins as well. They're actually packing 2 games in, which is insane. Yes, one of them's download, but the game they're actually selling you is physical for PS5, but not on Switch 2, because the game keycard will trigger both downloads at once. So, but I would have rather got it for PS5 anyway, and I will be getting it because I do want a Rayman 4. I'm still burned by that. But then again, at the same time, they burned me on this, so I'm conflicted. But that is not at fault to the devs. That's just to the higher-ups of Ubisoft that make these decisions that really mess people around. Because I don't blame the development team of the Sands of Time remake. It was close to being done. So why did the higher-ups say, nah, scrap it, we're doing Assassin's Creed instead because apparently it'll be better? So, I don't know. I mean, that's obviously not what they said in the thing, but that's press talk. And they said that they're stopping development. They didn't say it was outright cancelled, but give it a few years and it'll be obsolete, or other people will be working on it that don't know how the code works, or it may be incompatible. There's new engines out, and systems may not be compatible with the new engine, so you never know. Like, technology moves quite... Well, it used to move quite fast, but with the AI bubble, it slowed. I'm still going. But I'm just kind of paraphrasing other little tidbits, because if I was going to do this as a own separate video, I probably would have had a more structured thing. But yeah, so I've been going on for an hour now, but that is basically what it is. Because this was all stuff that was happening, which was also part of the delay for this very video. I think that is nice and meaty. So I hope you enjoyed my babble of talking about the Phantom Revival of E3, shall we say. Talking about all my prezzies, the stuff that we did around my time. Being thankful for everybody who was just there. I basically met with all my friends in person, which is what I've wanted the most out of this entire thing. And yeah, basically just stay safe and just remove the negativity, because I've been in a lot more better spirits ever since I had to, once again for the 4th time within, I don't know, 6 months on social media, had to whitelist words so I didn't see shit. And I've never had to do that on social media for the longest time until basically within the last 6 months. So, or at least 6 to 8 months, shall I say. But yeah, that is annoying, but it has been good that is still a feature that exists, because even though I know how to use it, but I've used it multiple times already because news has just been mostly that crap. When it's good, it's good. And as a Kingdom Hearts fan, we have finally had a nibble. Finally had a nibble. And we're savouring those nibbles because it's close. They didn't give a date, but it has to be close because, I mean, they're doing more Disney re-releases, like I said, with the Toy Story Retro Roundup and the remaster of Toy Story 3, which both Toy Story 2 and PS1 in particular, because that's what's in there, and the PS3 version of Toy Story 3, which is the remastered. Those were the most acclaimed ones. And even Toy Story 1 on Mega Drive and Super Nintendo especially were also groundbreaking, because they did something similar to what happened with Donkey Kong Country, where they took the models from the film, made out of silicon 3D graphics, and then turned into sprites. And there was also some interesting like 3D manipulation stuff going on there. So the fact that they have that, like all 3 of those games, they are a part of gaming history. 2 of them are just acclaimed really good games, and even though the first one is obviously incredibly difficult, it was still groundbreaking for its time. If you weren't into Donkey Kong and you were on a Sega Mega Drive or a Genesis, you had Toy Story, which used the same method. So absolutely insane. So there was a bunch of announcements that I was quite hyped for. I haven't mentioned every single one of them that has come out, like the upgrades for all of the Xenoblade trilogy. Well, actually no, including X as well. So that's a thing. And yeah, I've got stuff to look forward to. But I've also got a big backlog to get through as well, because there's a new Zelda remake coming out, and I still haven't beaten the latest, well, not the latest one because of Echoes of Wisdom, but because I have beaten that one, still got to get back to Tears of the Kingdom so I can play Age of Imprisonment. I'm quite behind. So, while I'm still working on everything else and doing the diddly darn thing, I will see you guys for whatever we do next on the channel.